So, Dandadan is back with episode 1 of season 2, and as per usual, there is a bit of controversy. Even so, the episode itself was awesome. I mean, there's nothing that truly embodies the universe of Dandadan than secret death cults, giant snake worms, and overpowered grandmas. So with that said, let's get into the episode and also address a few differences between the manga and anime. So the episode picks up from the ending of season 1 with Momo getting attacked by these gooners in the hot spring. And she kinda surmises that if she takes out the leader of the pack, then the rest will disperse, which is true in some cases, but it didn't work because someone just pops up from below. Apparently it was just down there the entire time, and he somewhat overpowers Momo and submerges her below the water, which causes her to feel somewhat lightheaded because, it is a hot spring, but she then uses her powers to blast him away. And this is very interesting because in the manga, something very similar happens, and I've always wondered if she actually tapped into that full power, the Super Saiyan form that she did in episode 1, because their entire body had this green glow, and you also saw the sparks on screen as well. That typically doesn't happen when she uses the regular base form of her powers, so it seems as if she somewhat subconsciously tapped into that power here. And that could be a change from the manga, but it could also be the case that it just wasn't as clear. Now she also destroyed the main piping as well, which causes everyone to run away because again, this is hot water, and she uses this chance to escape, but the next guy then turns up and grabbed her by the leg. Though just before he's able to do what he's trying to do here, the rest of the bathhouse then came crumbling down onto him. Ayase then notes that she's somewhat lucky, but then turns up Turbo Granny, who says that she's the lucky one. This of course is very important to note because this actually plays an important part in the story going forward, but Turbo Granny is in what's called a Maneki Neko, which is pretty much a lucky cat doll. And this item has the ability to bestow good luck upon other people, but Turbo Granny can't really control who that benefits, so it could have actually worked against Momo in this instance, but it didn't, which was awesome. But keep that in mind for what happens later on. But yeah, the owners of the hot spring then appear and they call the police on these things. So yeah. Anyways, they then take a stroll throughout the town and Granny says something interesting, which is that the house, which is Jiji's, seems as if it's soaked in human blood. This then leads us back to Jiji and Okarun, and they're kinda trying to figure out what's going on here. It's a hole in the wall and it has some ceiling tags on it. And by the way, pay close attention to the symbols on these cards because it's gonna come into play later on. That's all I'll say. With that said, these guys are above average intelligent, so they decide not to jump into this very mysterious room that is very dark and has multiple ceiling tags, okay? I think that was a very smart decision. Though someone then knocked at the door and it's then revealed to be these old ladies. These guys apparently own the house itself, so they're allowing Jiji to stay there for free while his parents are in the hospital. Though you can also tell through the vibe of the conversation that this wasn't out of the goodness of their heart, I will say. That's clearly obvious. She then questions him about why he disappeared for so long, and he goes on to tell them that he just went to meet his friends. But you can also tell that she isn't too convinced, and that is likely because he already went and called a spirit medium to go check out the house itself to see if it's infested with spirits, which they don't want him to do. And they kind of play it off as bringing down the value of the house in the eyes of the citizens, but they're more so concerned about something else. Now the rest of the family then comes in and you get to realize that these guys are related to the same goons from the hot spring, and the police are also into it as well because he kind of got them off all the charges for destroying the place and also for harassing a young teenage girl, by the way. But let's put that to the side. Now this guy seems to be the eldest one of the group, even though all of them look like corpses at this point, to be honest. Like, there's no way you can tell me that these guys are human, okay? That doesn't make sense. I mean, look at this woman's eyes. It's literally glowing. So come on, you have to be real here. But yeah, with that said, he then questions Jiji about the same thing once again, and he says, again, I was at my friend's, and he tells him, don't lie to me. I don't know if these guys can sense when people are lying or if they're just like automatically distrusting of people, because he just says something normally and everyone is like, don't lie to me. Like, maybe he's just a bad liar, who knows. But yeah, he tells him that Okarun is his friend and he brought him over to spend some time and all that stuff. But he doesn't believe him, so he questions Okarun about some of his interests, like what is Jiji's favorite football team. And Okarun starts to sweat, and Jiji's also sweating here because he never told him. But Okarun gets it right, and he later points to the poster that's on the wall that literally shows this football team. And they also, by the way, put this up to cover the hole in the wall so these guys wouldn't see it. But it's also funny that they left the actual pieces of the wall on the ground, like right below the hole itself. So I'm like, bro, you guys really aren't good at this. Also, Tatsu, who is the mangaka for Dandadan, is so funny because he knows that Okarun said the correct answer, but because he wants us to feel that it's wrong and something bad is going to happen, he still has Jiji in the background being shocked and afraid and sweating, even though he literally heard him say the correct answer, so he should be relieved. That was funny because they also carried it over into the anime as well. But yeah, Jiji then messed up because she then goes on to question him about the girl that was also here, and he says, "What girl?" And I thought that was really silly of Jiji because, bro, you literally ran to the door saying Momo. Who's Momo if it isn't Okarun? And also, she might pop up at any point in time. She can literally pop up right now at the door and knock and just come inside. So why lie? Just say, yeah, there's a girl as well and she's my friend as well, or she's with Okarun. Like, it's just so silly. But of course, you know, he could be panicking and that's why. But anyways, we then switch over to Momo visiting the shrine for the Tsuchinoko. And hopefully I'm saying that right, okay? But yeah, the guy lets her into the temple or whatever you want to call it, the shrine, and shows her the object, and it's just a shriveled up piece of snakeskin, which the guy refers to as an umbilical cord because it kind of looks like one. And he goes on to explain the tale of the Tsuchinoku, which says a dragon flying through the skies will cast a rainbow, and the wrath of the mountain will swallow up the village. He then goes on to say that they used to worship a great snake in this region, and when that great serpent that lives in the volcano becomes hungry, the volcano erupts, or so it was believed. It then says that in those days, people would present a child from the village as an offering to the serpent to appease its hunger. Because of that, there wasn't a single eruption for over 200 years, and they got the benefit of the hot springs, so the legend says. He also notes that the thing that looks like, an umbilical cord is apparently the shed skin of the great serpent. And now they pray to the great serpent's skin and receive protection from eruptions, it seems. Momo then questions him about this supposed Tsuchinoku, and he pretty much says that they lied about it to attract tourists, and that the legend around the great serpent is man's fault. When fear robs people of their ability to think, they'll start believing in things like human sacrifice, and he's here to prevent that from happening. But also, what he wants to really do in life is to become a bootuber, which is pretty much, a YouTuber. But yeah, Momo tells him to just put the tale on YouTube, okay? It sounds very interesting. Now, just so you guys understand, the Tsuchinoku is an actual yokai. And I know people believe that yokai are just, spirits and all that stuff. But yokai also applies to monsters as well, so just keep that in mind. Now we then skip back to the house with Momo's arrival, and I do find it very interesting, even when I read it in the manga, that Okarun got defeated by these people. I'm like, bro, how did you allow this to happen? You do have the powers of Turbo Granny, right? Why didn't you use them? And it's so crazy, even in the manga as well, because he was way more badly damaged. It's like they almost beat them to death, till they're bruised and even bleeding in the manga. So it was really crazy. But yeah, Momo then went off and actually took out a good number of them, and the animation was so great, man. Like, this fight was amazing. And Momo, by the way, is so immensely powerful. And I do wonder if Momo herself is even human, because the hits she's able to land on these guys and the damage she's able to stomach without, literally passing out. And also this lady here is saying the same thing, wondering if this girl is even a spirit medium based on her abilities. And I do find it interesting that her powers are different from Seiko's. So maybe there's something to this, and we'll discuss that at a later date. But yeah, one of the guys then grabs Momo from behind and delivered one of the nastiest headbutts I have ever seen. But she survived, she wasn't totally knocked out. And then we have Granny, of course, popping up, which uses her luck ability again. She can't really control it, but it does work when, it's needed. And the guy trips over one of the glass bottles and falls to the ground. Now that's when Super Granny chips in, and she's literally dominating Momo throughout the entire fight. And I will say again, there's no way this woman is human. And Granny says something interesting. I'm referring to actual Turbo Granny. She's like, yeah, this Granny is super powerful. And Momo's like, there's no way this woman is a Granny. And Turbo Granny's like, you literally have a Super Granny at home. Why is this any different? And I mean, there is certainly an argument to be made there that Granny is correct to say that. But I still don't believe that this woman is human. Okay, there's no way this woman is human. But yeah, she then knocks Momo through multiple walls, by the way, and into the same hidden room that Okarun discovered. She then goes on to give, the typical villain monologue, the Kito family has protected this land for generations and we've made multiple sacrifices. And also, something that's very interesting is that this very house is built on top of the same pillar they used to sacrifice to this god, this death worm, for multiple years. And it's also somewhat hinted at that Jiji's parents were meant to be sacrifices to that entity, but apparently that didn't work out for some reason. But anyways, the plan is to now offer up these three as the sacrifices instead. The grandma then used her earth style jutsu to then collapse the ground below Momo to have her fall in, and she tries to escape using her actual powers, which she should have done before anyways, but she tries, but they kind of prevented her from escaping because there's only one entrance. And I do wonder if she could have just created a new entrance with her powers, but it could be the case that these ceiling tags are preventing anything from getting out. You have to go in, though that's just a theory. Now Okarun and Jiji then appears just in time to save Momo but fails miserably and everyone falls in. Jiji almost falls to his death, but he apparently fell on something a bit more comfy, which is later revealed to be the actual death monster. Now Terbagani calls this a Kuragari, but this isn't the actual name of the beast. Okarun describes it as a giant man-eating earthworm, UMA, which by the way just means unidentifiable mysterious animal. Or you could just call them, a yokai. But yeah, this is what you call a Mongolian deathworm, officially. Now these idiots, of course, think they're special, they're the leaders of the cult and whatever. So they start to dance and do their little chants, but they then get swallowed up anyway by the beast. Now I will say this was changed from the manga, which I find very interesting because the leader of the pack, which is the granny with superpowers, and also one of the dudes managed to escape. And it's literally shown on panel, but here in the anime, everyone gets swallowed up apparently. So it could be the case that they're going a different direction from the manga and removing these characters from the story entirely. Or it could also be the case that they just wanted to kind of keep it off screen and they survive some other way. I guess we'll see. Now the rest of them then run inside one of the houses and it seems like something is wrong because Momo and Okarun are holding their head for some reason. And then Okarun starts to creepily transform into his yokai form, crawling towards Jiji. Now I will say this is different from the manga as well, because Okarun does attack Jiji in the manga, but he doesn't transform into his yokai form. So that's an interesting change, and also I do like the direction of making it look a bit more creepy, because it wasn't that in the manga. But with that said, that is it for the episode, and the preview was awesome as well. It shows that the next one is going to be pretty Jiji centric, and if you guys read the manga, you know why. This is going to be about Evil Eye, man, and I think this is one of the best stories in the Dandadan manga, so I'm sure you guys will enjoy it. I will also say that the opening was pretty good as well. It's not the same as the first one, does have better animation of course, and the directing is pretty cool, but I will say that the first song was a bit more exciting for sure, and I think it makes sense given the topics we're gonna cover in this arc. So while it's not as exciting as the first one, it does make more sense for this section of the story, so hopefully it's well received. But yeah, that's it for the video. If you guys want me to cover more Dandadan episodes, let me know in the comment section. If you guys liked it, drop a like. If you're new, subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.